am teacher Svetlana, and in our today's session we will learn about pollination, types of pollination and agents involved in pollination, which is covered in the chapter Reproduction in Lower and Higher Plants. Students, let us understand what is pollination. Pollen grains, being non-motile, angiosperms have evolved the strategy to use abiotic agents, that is wind, water, and biotic agents like birds, insects, snails, to their flowers, feeding the visitors and exploiting their mobility for pollination and also for seed dispersal. So basically, since pollen grains are non-motile, these plants have developed a technique where they use both the abiotic and biotic agents to transfer the pollen grains from one place to another. Pollen grains are non-motile and they are usually carried from flower to flower by means of these external agents. So pollination is the transfer of pollen grains from anther to the stigma of the flower. So when the pollen grain is transferred from the anther to the stigma, that process is called as pollination. Here I've put up a chart which will give you an overview of this process of pollination. That is, this is pollination. Then you have two types of pollination, that is self-pollination and cross-pollination. Then the agents that are involved in the process of pollination, we have abiotic agents, which is wind, water, and we have biotic agents. Now, among the biotic agents, there is a list of abiotic agents. We will see a few of them in this chapter. Now, it is a prerequisite for fertilization because both the male and the female gametes are non-motile. That is, we are talking about pollination. Pollination is absolutely essential for the process of fertilizations, as both the male and the female gametes are non-motile. Moreover, these gametes are produced at two different sites, and hence the process of pollination becomes very important for the further process of fertilization. Students, let us have a look at the types of pollination. Self-pollination is a type of pollination which occurs in a single flower or two flowers on a single plant. Now, this results in inbreeding or selfing. And in contrast, we have cross-pollination, that is the transfer of pollen grains from the anther of one flower to the stigma of another flower of a different plant of the same species. So self-pollination is transfers to the same flower or to the flower on the same plant, but in your cross-pollination you have transfer of the pollen grains from the anther of one flower to the stigma of the flower which is on a different plant, but it belongs to the same species. Now, this pollination is further divided into three types on the basis of source of pollination. First being autogamy, which is called as self-pollination. Have a look at this image here. It says self-pollination is the transfer of pollen grains from the anther to the stigma of the same flower or another flower of the same plant. So this image one, you can see you have the anthers here and you have the stigma here. So the transfer of the pollen grain from the anther to the stigma of the same flower, and otherwise you have the transfer of the pollen grains from the anther of one flower to the stigma of another flower, but both the flowers are located on the same plant. So this both together collectively is called as self-pollination. Students, in self-pollination, the offsprings are genetically identical to their parents. Then you have the next one, which is ethanogamy. That is a transfer of the pollen grain to the stigma of a different flower produced on the same plant. This is basically the second image. So it is a kind of self-pollination only, but two different flowers are involved. And here it's functionally similar to cross-pollination, as it involves a pollinating agent, but it cannot bring about genetic variation and is only of ecological significance. So it is similar to your autogamy, as pollen grains are coming from the same plant. Then we have the next category Or the next type of pollination, that is xenogamy, which is also called as cross-pollination or outbreeding. In this type of cross-pollinations, where pollen grain of one flower is deposited on the stigma of the flower of a different plant belonging to the same species. Now, obviously, this is brought about with the help of a pollinating agents. Now, in this case, we can generate plants or offsprings that are genetically different. So have a look at this image here. It talks about cross-pollination. It is the transfer of pollen grains from the anther of one flower to the stigma of the another flower of the same kind. So this is one flower located on one plant, and this is the another similar flower which is located on a different plant. So you have the pollen grains or the anthers that can be transferred from one flower to another flower. The pollen grains are transferred from the anther of one flower to the stigma of the another flower. So this brings about cross-pollination, and it can bring about genetic variations. But both these flowers belong to the same species, but they belong to different plants. In self-pollination, it is either the same flower or two flowers of the same plant, and in cross-pollination, the two flowers are of the same type, but they belong to two different plants. Students, majority of the flowering plants depend on the transfer of their pollen grains. Virtually all seed plants need to be pollinated. Most of the food and fiber crops grown throughout the world depend upon pollinators for reproduction. So the agents responsible for pollination have been grouped into two major categories. We have the abiotic agents and we have the biotic agents. Let us first have a look at the first type of the agents responsible for pollination, that is abiotic agents. Pollination by wind, also called as anemophily. Now, for this type of pollination, there are certain morphological changes that the flower shows. So let us have a look at the adaptations in anemophilous flowers. The flowers are small, inconspicuous, colorless, without nectar, fragrance, that is odor. So they're very tiny flowers, and they don't produce nectars because there is no need to attract any insects. Again, they don't have any bright colors because they don't have to attract any pollinators. The pollen grains are light in weight, dry, and they are produced in large numbers to increase the chances of pollination, considering the wastage of the pollen grains. So since it's a mode of wind pollination, so a lot of pollen grains might get wasted. So they are produced in large numbers, plus they are very light in weight. Now the stigma is quite feathery to trap the pollen grains carried by the wind current. The stamens are exerted with long filaments and versatile anthers. The stamen and the stigmas are exposed to the air current. So this is an image of a maize plant which will show you the male flower heads here, and you can see they produce large amounts of pollen grains. This is an example which will show you how cross-pollination takes place with the help of wind. The next abiotic agent involved is pollinations by water, which is also called as hydrophily. Now, the adaptations that hydrophilous flowers show: flowers are small and inconspicuous, then the entire floral parts are unwettable. Pollen grains are long and unwettable due to presence of mucilage. Nectar and fragrances are lacking in the flowers, so the flowers do not produce any nectar or any fragrance. Now this that is, water is involved in the process of pollination, and we have two types of hydrophily. We have hypohydrophily and we have epihydrophily. In hypohydrophily, the pollination occurs below the surface of the water. Hence, the pollen grains are heavier than water. They sink down and they are caught by the stigma of the female flower. Example, you have Zoestra, which is also called as a seagrass. Have a look at this image here. You will see that the male flower releases the pollen grains, and they are quite thread-like, and they are heavier than the water, so they are not floating about on the surface of the water, and when they are floating, they come in contact with the stigma of the female flower and the pollination is achieved. And then you have the next category, which is the epihydrophily. Here the pollen grains float on the surface of the water, and reach the stigma of the female flower. For example, here have a look at this example. It is Vallisneria. It is submerged dioecious. Dioecious is flower is where the both male and the female flowers are separate. Then the freshwater aquatic plant it is, and in which the female flower reaches the water surface temporarily to ensure pollination, and the male flower floats on the surface of water. So have a look at this image here. You can see the male inflorescence is present here. So once the male flower attains its maturity, it releases the flower, it comes on the surface of the water. Then we have the female flower, which is highly coiled and submerged under the water. As the flower attains maturity, the stem uncoils till when it reaches complete maturity. The stem uncoils completely, bringing the flower to the surface of the water. So the male flower releases the anthers in the water, which are received by the stigma of the female flower. Now here the specific gravity of the pollen grain is equal to that of water, and that is why they float on the surface of water. So this is an example of epihydrophily. So after the abiotic agents, let us have a look at the biotic agents that are involved in the process of pollination. We have pollination by insects, also called as actinomorphy. Now here the adaptations of the flowers are that they are large in size, they are bright in color, they produce sweet odor, the stigma is rough due to the presence of hair, and they are sticky due to mucilage secretions. The pollen grains are spiny and surrounded by yellow sticky substances called as pollen kit. Now some plants have special adaptations for insect visitors to help in cross-pollination. Example, we have the liver mechanism or the turnpike mechanism in salvia. Have a look at this image. This is a real-time image of an insect carrying out the process of pollination in salvia. You have look at this image here. You can see the anther is present above and the stigma. So along with the stigma, the anthers are present here. Then when the insect tries to reach in for the nectar, the anthers dust the pollen grains on the insect's body. And the next time when the insect enters the second flower, the stigma that is present on that flower comes in contact to the insect's body and receives the pollen grains, and thus the transfer of pollen grains is achieved. So this is an example of an insect pollination. Then we have pollination by birds, which is called as ornithophily. Here the flowers are brightly colored, they're large, they're showy, they secrete profuse dilute nectars, which is little more in quantities. Then the pollen grains are sticky and spiny, and the flowers are generally without fragrance, as birds have poor sense of smell. So here you can see large flowers, and the bird is coming in for the nectar, and thus the pollen grains will get deposited on the body of the bird, and when the bird visits the next flower, the pollen grains will be transferred. Our next kind of pollinating agents are bats. This is also called as chiroptophilia. Here the adaptations are the flowers are dull in color but with strong fragrance. They secrete abundant amounts of nectars. Now these flowers produce large amounts of edible pollen grains. So here the bat is acting as the agent for the transfer of pollen grains. So these are the different agents that are involved in the process of pollination, and they ensure that the pollen grains are transferred so that the next step, which is important step, which is fertilization, will take place. Thank you students for participating in this lecture. We will meet soon again with the next topic. Till then, take care, be safe and keep learning, and all the best for your exams.